Hey there and welcome. It's Alison here again, and we're back for another episode of how to draw a cartoony something from real life photo inspirations. And today we're tackling how to draw a cartoon hat. Now what makes this a little bit tricky when you draw from memory is the brim and the areas of light and shadow around it. That's why it works really well to get a handle first on the proportions by tracing and then copying. So as you can see, this lends itself to this tracing and copying technique. And first we go and explore the shadows on either side of the face underneath the brim by tracing them in. Then we fill in the brim and this area of light just over her brow. Of course, the hat band defines the top of that light area. And then we move on to these pinch marks, or dimples as I like to call them. As you can see, we're just filling in the outline of this very elegant looking fedora that this lovely lady is wearing today. And the whole point of this is just to see how you can use tracing on real life objects to get a feel for proportions. Then we go in and fill in how the brim of the hat and the back of the hat actually relates to the face underneath it, and how the different areas define each other and relate to each other proportionally. And it's quite important also to draw in the face so that you fill in the eyes and particularly the eyebrows, as where they sit in relation to the brim can make a very big difference between having something that looks quite ridiculous or something that looks very lifelike. Once we've got that tracing in place and we've got a feel for those proportions, of course we can go through and fill in these outlines which start to give us more of a feel for it. And for those pinch marks, I'm going to actually define them by lines as opposed to dark shadow, because we do want to get that illustrated cartoony feel to our end product when we're finished. Then we go through and define the face and put in the features, all a bit exaggerated because cartoons are always more exaggerated than real life. We can always revisit them afterwards, so it's a matter of putting the shapes and spaces in and then tweaking as we go. Nothing is ever set in stone. You just do the best you can at the time and then move on. Quite important as well to put in a few strands of hair just as guidelines for what we're going to revisit later, because the hair is an important part of making the hat sit in a lifelike way on your drawn face. So now once we've got that, it's time to start doing some coloring, and this is going to go fairly swiftly. While you look at the coloring in, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about what is the huge benefit of using this tracing mechanism, because obviously anyone can take a photograph and draw over it. So what is the benefit for you when you're actually learning to draw something? And the huge benefit is really just teaching your eye and your hand to work together in wrestling with proportions and the different proportions of different things that you want to draw, and how your brain perceives them, how your mind actually gets them onto the paper. And then coming back and seeing how they all fit together and putting in elements of color and shadow to define different things and make them look more lifelike. So here we've managed to darken up our colors, having taken away the background and seen how it looks on its own. And now we're going to revisit these features and possibly change the proportions because we weren't too happy with them originally. So slightly smaller eyes. And in cartoon land, anything goes, so you will notice, if you look carefully at people, that often there are slight dissimilarities in the size of eyes, which we can exaggerate sometimes for interesting cartoon effect. And then we can move on and start coloring. We're doing fairly rough work here because the point of this exercise is not so much the color as the tracing as a technique to get a grasp on proportions. So while we are going to color it in just to get something which looks a little bit more finished, the focus is really on how tracing is such a fantastically useful tool as you start to draw anything for the first time, or try to wrestle with something which might have caused you a bit of a headache when you've tried to draw it in the past. So there we are, just filling in the shadows underneath the brim of the hat, and of course putting in a few different colors for the hair. Hair is always fun when you're coloring it. You need a whole load of different textures and thicknesses of your brushes, whether you're using digital drawing like I am here, or pencil and paper and colored pencils as I like to do as well. It's just a matter of getting that strandy, grainy feel as you go forward. And then of course we need to fill in a few strands of hair which actually overlap the underneath of the brim, because that is the difference between making the hat look as if it's actually sitting down on one's head rather than perched on top, which is not a natural look at all. So as we get to the end, we take out these fine black lines because it actually looks better without the strandy guidelines that we originally worked with. And there we have our face. Fill in a little pop of color to make that look a little bit more lifelike, and we're pretty much done here. So if you enjoyed this video, you can always subscribe to my YouTube channel and head across to my website www.alisonbeer.com and sign up for free email updates. Bye for now, and I'll see you next time on AlisonBeer.com.